No more introduction needed. You see on the slide a subtitle, and it took me quite a while to insert this subtitle, because this subtitle exactly leads to a current research project of mine, which I barely started. And this is all the more that I sort of expect questions and criticism from your side. The first part, the status of esoteric practices in present-day Taiwan, has been researched. You will see the sources. It's the more conventional part of this talk, because many things have been done already. But the second one is a question, as you see. It's the question of whether these practices, however we might want to call them, have developed or have evolved from something that at a certain time was considered as esoteric and is now gradually moving to something which I would call exoteric. But let's see how this develops. So my talk will have these 5 parts. And the last part is the one that really interests me. All the others, I mean, for Leonard Festerkamp and many others, I'm preaching to the converted, but still others won't have perhaps this background. So I need something general as a general introduction for instance, mantic arts. Now, the mantic arts, as you can see, the meaning of this term in Chinese shushu may be understood as applying to all systematic processes that investigate nature and things, as seen in opposition to xueshu. It is based on computational arts, but not only. Shushu also includes physiognomy, palmistry, divination through the examination of bones, analysis of Chinese characters, geomancy and name analysis, and so on and so on and so forth. So this first part, which I'm introducing here, is, I mean, thanks to Stephanie Omola, who has done a lot of work about this present status of esoteric or mantic arts in present-day Taiwan. And let us just remark that shushu means, I mean, it has been reversed. The order of these two characters here has been reversed over time. It means basically art, shu, and second, numbers. But numbers is only a very limited interpretation of the term. It means, of course, numbers. Shu is mathematics, for instance. But shu is also frequently used as a synonym for fate, your number, your code. So in German, I propose the French loanword chiffre, you know, which could also be a chiffre, you know, this is your number, your fate, okay? What we can then see is an overview of the shushu division of the year 110, roughly, of our era. And you can see that it includes heavenly patterns, calendars, chronology, 5 agents, the 5 agents, phases, elements, the milfoil and turtle, miscellaneous prognostication, including dream prognostication, morphoscopy, which is physiognomy, but also topomancy, and so on and so forth. So remind that is 110 BC, the Hanshu event, the bibliographic entry of the Hanshu. It is interesting, however, to note that prophecy or inspired divination is not contained here, and it was excluded from a very early moment. So we will have to deal afterwards with a kind of manifestation of prophecy in the framework of the Shruti, but it has been excluded at a very early date, such as exorcism, for instance, exorcism techniques, and so on and so forth. So now, great leap forward, and how the Kuomintang dealt with mantic arts, that is to say, after 1912, there was a change of power. The dynasty was no longer there. And these practices were still seen as the symbol of a pre-modern cosmology that was incompatible with the building of the nation. So diviners had to organize themselves into associations to be a good citizen, That was the idea. We are also good citizens, and we work for the fate of the individuals and of the people. But of course, there was a condemnation of superstitious practices. The very word of superstition, the very term superstition, is a neologism that came from Japan. So traditional China did not have that word as a noun. It had it as a verb, to believe in something ominous, a belief that goes astray, something like that. And there were rules and regulations. There was the procedure for the abolition of occupations of divination, astrology, physiognomy, and palmistry, sorcery, and geomancy in 1928, and so on and so forth. Superstitious objects and professions were banned. There's a nice book by Rebecca Nevistock, which I quote here. And it's called Superstitious Regimes, because the regimes themselves can be considered as superstitious in their opposition to what they call superstition, which is a very interesting thing. Now just a bit of change, because my opinion is that from the 1990s onwards, divination has become, or magic arts of all kinds, including prophecy and inspired forecasting, has become a marker of Taiwanese identity. Not in all regards, but in many of them. And that is a quite daring hypothesis, which I try to for which I try to give some evidence in the following. Now you have the remarkable the development of the street of divination near Xintiangong in Taipei, not only to gather fortune tellers who used to abound around temples, but also to attract tourists. And there are Japanese travel companies that organize special tours for the Japanese people to these temples, and to get close contact with Chinese diviners, which are very much required and requested, especially in Japan. So contributes to the image of Taiwan as the last stronghold of Chinese ancestral traditions, which is again interesting because we know that before 1949, many of these arts were not practiced in Taiwan. So the interesting thing is that you sort of turn something into a marker of your national identity, which comes from abroad in the sense of a Taiwanese nationalism, which is interesting. And that's the hybrid character of the whole issue. Now, just a word about Taiwanese identity. Number one, the green line indicates identification of Taiwanese with either. The green line is I'm 100% Taiwanese. The miserable other lines are I'm a bit Taiwanese, a bit Chinese, or I'm totally Chinese. So you see that has declined considerably during the last years, from 1991 exactly. This is why how we can explain the blossoming of magic arts too. So if we go to the sort of definitions of present-day definitions of Taiwanese identity, we have first of all, which is absolutely true, the fact that there is democracy, that there is a state of law. We have, to a certain extent, the existence of Taiwanese indigenous peoples who have been cherished exactly also since the beginning of the 90s. They make about 0.1% 5–6% of the Taiwanese population, but there is a sort of a cult around that. The presence, the former presence, the previous presence of Dutch, Spaniards, Portuguese, etc., which is also a marker of Taiwanese identity, which you see in exhibits, in the museums, even in school textbooks and so on. So that is very widespread. But the Mantic arts can be a paradox because precisely because I said, many of them, like for instance, horoscopy, the parts of the, which is the Chinese way of chronomancy, we would say, which is a better term perhaps, came from the mainland. With all these people coming with Chiang Kai-shek, to Thailand after 1948. So that might be a paradox, and I'm really, I'm perhaps a bit too courageous to introduce this question. Now, some remarks about religious attitudes, and I have to thank Professor Wang Fan-sen and Professor Chen Zhiyu for giving me insight into this Taiwan social change survey. And one is, well, do you think that one's fate can be known from these methods? And look, I mean, the Bazi is the Chinese horoscopy, Zilei Doshu is another way to find the proper moment for an action, examination of bones, palmistry. So you see that not a majority, but a good deal of the Taiwanese population in 1995 believed in the efficacy of these methods. And then the big turn, between in the 7 basic surveys, there's always a question that asks whether the respondents have had the experience of actively seeing fortune telling. From the results of the 7 surveys conducted over the past 30 years, the proportion of people has remained at around 30% in the entire Taiwanese population of society. And that gave a good ground for turning it, as I say, with a somewhat daring hypothesis, from esoteric to exoteric. Well, my own research is also built on the work of the sociologist Qu Haiyuan. The renaissance of Mantic arts in Taiwan in the 1990s was not a new phenomenon, but it was there. There was a similar boom in the late 20th century in Europe and the United States, but not in Taiwan. So when he says it was not a new phenomenon, he means that in a global perspective. Okay, do you perform sacrifices to the ancestors? The last data I got are from 2019, so relatively recent, I would say. And 83% here, 83%, you see on the right side, do perform sacrifices to their ancestors. 60.9% don't. And then, do you observe auspicious or inauspicious days for special activities, such as wedding, moves, and funerals? And at least, Fengshui, they observe them very much, and they observe them somehow, the second 1, 2. So that makes 27.7% plus 34.4%, which is an interesting figure, I think. So, consulting the almanac, trying to find an auspicious day for an important activity. And very interesting also, the percentage of people who do not know. We have a much larger, there are similar surveys in mainland China, and the percentage of the people who do not know or do not express themselves, want to express themselves with regard to this question is much higher. So the Taiwanese, they know what they are talking about, and they know what they are doing, and they know that they can be, if they don't need to be courageous, to utter their opinions. Have you taken the initiative to consult the diviner? Again, 31% have done that. and 68% have not. And I forgot 0.1%, and I am against that 0.1% again. Now, have your family observed, you or your family observed Feng Shui during the past 5 years? 70.9% have. But it turns out that when it comes to your own family or your own abode, you know, your dwelling place, then for your abode, then it's considerably more. 25.4% have observed Feng Shui. So what I'm giving you here, these figures, is just to talk about the background of religious attitudes over the last years. So the first figures I was interested in come from 2009 and 2014 and end up with 2019. And then a very intriguing question: has the relationship between religion and daily life in Taiwan changed over time? And so absolutely agreed, 3.0%, but agreed, 52.9%. I have no idea about that. Here you have a more interesting figure, and I don't agree, 28.5%, which is interesting. So no change apparently in these attitudes, although there was, of course, a change. But from an outside perspective, so on an inside perspective, rather, an inside perspective of Taiwanese people, there has been no change at all. And now, last question, I think: is a spirit medium able to heal people? And what they call, for instance, a Jitong, which is a spirit medium. I do believe very much, 3.5%. I do believe somehow, 29.7%. So there's a large, I don't believe very much. But still, I mean, there's some kind of hesitation. And of course, spirit mediums do not, as I said, pertain to the category of Shufu, mantic arts. But of course, in present-day Taiwan, there's a mixture of everything. So you also have to count these inspired mediums, which we will see in a moment. Now, since the 1990s, early 1990s, several temples in Taiwan, including some in Taipei, the capital, but also one very famous temple in the south, in Tainan, perform the oracle of the fate of the nation, which is a Chinese court warrior. This is my new project. I come to what I find interesting after having sort of trying to familiarize you with the background. Oracle of the fate of the nation is performed in 2 ways. The first one is picking sticks from 60 to 100. We will see that in a moment. After having sort of drawn a stick from a box, a receptacle, the Qiantou, the receptacle of the fortune sticks, which is the translation, but again, don't have another fortune, it looks like fortune cookies, right? And that's not the intention of these sticks. So they tell you something. Each of these sticks has a number, and each of these numbers has a poem. And you go to an altar or a shrine, you know, pick up the respective sheet number, and there is a poem first. Then second, there is an allusion to the past, to a past moment, an archetype in history, so to speak, you know, as which confronts you with the same situation. You are in the same situation than a guy 2,000 years before, and everybody is supposed to know about this situation because it presupposes a certain kind of erudition, but most people will have that. And then there's a god, a deity, who protects this and who sort of oversees the whole procedure. You have to pray to him or her. In many cases, it's a her. In other cases, it's a him. And there's a variety in this pantheon of deities that are located in these temples. And then you have to ask for a confirmation with these moon blocks, in China. And there are three positions. The good position, the Shangjiao, the holy answer, the sacred answer, is if one is flat and one is round and falls to earth. I don't do it here because there's no deity to protect it. So this is the good thing, Shangjiao, the holy answer, the sacred answer. Then you have this, both sides flat, which is Ningjiao, which is the angry answer of the deity. You are not allowed to ask this question, or your question is totally silly. And there is the Xiaojiao, which is both round sides to the earth, and then it's shaky, you see. The Jiaobei, the moon blocks shake, and this is Xiaojiao, the god laughs at you and finds your question absolutely aberrant, deviant, silly, whatnot. So we have two negative sort of answers and one positive. And yes, now let's have a look. Oh yeah, now I might need some help. Let's see, I try my best. Oh yeah, no, this is, I mean, it worked at home, but no. Yeah, escape, okay, yeah, thank you. And then this one. Okay, let's give it a chance, I'll try. Okay. Yeah, and is that the tone, or we don't have it? No? That's fine. That's fine. So six.
臭的喜欢国并先结果出炉。
下面就是我在出领悟苗消费，你这样就是咱会当代表着咱国家努力，一定会当互咱真满意。
Defense, right? I mean, there's also a classification of these poems. You know, it's super high, super auspicious, and then medium, and then it goes down gradually to the worst. The proportion, the ratio is about 20%, no, 15%, excuse me, 15% super high, super auspicious, and only 10% super inauspicious. So you see there is a kind of proportion, of course, of ratio already in these texts. The text can differ, but there's always a poem, and there is a historical, this was this year's Goyen in a certain temple. This year's oracle of state of the nation, so to speak. And here it is, it relates to Tang Taizong. Century, who calls his concubine, who will later become Empress, the usurper, Empress of China. So it's related to a woman, and that is also by the media now related to the actual, to the present president of Taiwan, who's a woman. But we will see her role a moment afterwards. We just some time.
象征国运昌隆，女神经济的稳固的更好，是地方举办国运前13年首次抽到了上签，这个政治有不同解读。
目前看起来日益是非常好，其实意思不是这样，不管政治上还是各种民间的生活是贫困艰苦中啊，还要遇到春色，春色当即你知道。
难道是我在 2016年抽中的武则天助天仙是被解读神社蔡英文当选总统而爆红，这是国情出现了武媚娘有何政治解读，天机不可泄露，只能靠个人自行参透。而台北市农都保安宫则是抽出废军生理无故。
This warrior, this temple has an address to the 4 classes of the people, which have something to do with early divisions into scholars, peasants, workers. Here you see, scholars, workers, peasants, and the 4th one. Ah, yes, of course, warrior. Okay, so we stop here for the moment. Okay, then I go. I have this escape, and then back to the presentation, right? Okay, that's the last one.
Yes, sir.
No. Problem is, I mean, it worked perfectly when I was at home. Yeah. And yes, this is just to illustrate, I mean, the religious character or the religious affinity of these proceedings. Here we are at a temple in Taipei. These are individuals asking for an answer to their individual questions, which have to be important questions of wedding, travel, investment. And there are devout women who I wouldn't call nuns, but they are especially they have these special gowns for this moment, and they give blessings to the people before they ask their questions. This is just to show you how same thing they chant, in this case they chant Taoist texts. Some of them chant, some of them would give you a blessing. Okay, then the next one. Okay, that should work. Just very, very briefly. Doesn't. That's not really important. Yeah. Thanks.
今天中国人之话题要带大家来看一看了，全国最早的国运签出炉。高雄五甲关帝庙场边开出了周上的国运签。新的一年虽然照有天灾、疫情以及万物齐涨等等人生问题，不过百业兴隆，整体运势来说比去年好，这个好账。
This is just to show you that the results of this article are widely discussed in not only in TV here, but also in the newspapers. And that lasts, I mean, the whole debate lasts for about 2 weeks or so. And it's a public thing. I mean, it's really something that is widely debated. And of course, also, there's some kind of verification in the past. Which temple's oracles have come true during the last 15 years or so. So there is a competition, you have, it's not arbitrary, but anyhow.
也为大家2023年带来新的希望。李生在龙台上写下签诗，高雄五甲关帝庙开出全国最早国运签。
癸子含香正大楼，卯人手艺乐春风。
So he's reciting the poem of this year, which was sort of gotten in this temple, which is a 1D temple, which is devoted to Lord One.
开心运都如意， 欲度增详。
I would like to draw your attention on this part here. This is the official TV Taiwan. It's state-run or state-owned. And you have here a warning. That's so, I mean, Dominic Miller would call it hybrid. Okay. Well, however, traditional folk tradition, please don't superstitiously trust in it. So, I mean, you have this wide discussion. I mean, it's so open, you know, but still, on the official TV station, you have this warning, which is, of course, a heritage from the old Enlightenment period of the Kuomintang. You know, please don't. And okay, as a linguist, we could also say that here you find this, what is nowadays a noun, usually a superstition, is used as a verb. Don't superstitiously trust this message.
百业荣。
妙方解析上半年运势平平，景气求稳，到了下半年各行各业。
So first half of the year, spring and summer will be sort of balanced, but you know the great opportunities come in fall and winter. Okay, yeah. So again, a competition, and it is said that the most important temple, I mean, for this, no, the temple that had the maximum of hits during the last 15 years is located in Tainan, in the south of, it's called Nankun Sheng Dai Fu Yao, which is devoted to the 5 Wang Yi. That is too complicated, at least to tell you for the moment, but anyhow, you have deities, okay? In that case, you have 5 deities, and it is said, and I found that in the newspapers, that in 2019, these 5 gods refused an answer. They tried it 60 times, and they refused that, and that was seen as a sort of an omen of the pandemic later on, of course. But of course, great disaster, great catastrophe, 60 times a refusal. I mean, I'm not in stochastics and in probability, but how many times do you have to throw these blocks to get this? And this is said that since the establishment or the founding of the temple 357 years ago, that never has been the case. So it was the first time for 357 years. You can, of course, say, no, 357 years back, they didn't ask for the fate of the nation, of course, because there was no Taiwanese nation, and that was held, if ever, elsewhere. This is still something I have to explore. It's open to, I don't know much about that, and I don't know much about the evolution of this oracle of the fate of the nation before the 1990s. I know that so that it was flourishing or started to flourish right after this. So how do I get yes, to the next slide?
今天中文人生话题要带大家来看。
Several oracles, several different oracles from different temples. And also discusses what kind of results have been obtained during the last 15 years, from which temple and which oracle sort of came.
我来讲国运前程，最近这几年呢，开始慢慢有人注意到台湾呢有很多大庙在农历年去抽签，抽农业会怎么样啊，经济会怎么样，渔民的生计会怎么样，最主要的还是国运。相信的人就觉得非常的相信，不相信。
Those who believe, you know, they came before, and those who doesn't believe, this guy who doesn't believe is a foreign. 不相信的 is a foreign kind of distrust. And again, please take a look at the other part here. Again, folk belief. Please don't entirely or fully trust it. Because again, this is Taiwan official TV, and they still have this motto, you know, that warns you against entirely or fully believing.
信的这个是跟迷信的事情，其实呢，我对算命啊、玄学的事情有一些兴趣的，所以呢，在抽运签支这件事情注意过很多年。全台湾的各大庙宇，他们每年，他有的是呢在除夕那一天收件，大部分是在农历初四的时候收件，因为年初四啊，通常的讲法就是说神明啊，他们在12月24号当天回天庭跟玉皇大帝报告啊，在过去这一年发生了什么事情，我们做了什么事情。然后呢，到农历大年初四的时候，又回到凡间来。这个时候，大家来请示，看看说国家的运势会怎么样。那么，全台湾呢有几间比较大的庙，它是每年都会抽签的。譬如说，台北的大王洞、保安洞这一间庙宇呢，它有300多年的历史。即使你不相信
different temples presented here. And later on, which I spare you, is an analysis, a quite detailed analysis of
神明啊，这些事，你也可以去参观，因为它有300多年历史，你可以当做古迹来参观。它的隔壁呢，就是台北市孔庙，那也可以参观。另外呢，过去这10年来比较出名的有南昆生代天府。
This is the temple I was just talking about, which in 357 years up through 2019 always had answers and didn't provide an answer even after having tried 60 times, which was a really bad.
最近这些年，因为呢，它有几次的抽签非常的也引起大家的注意。其实
Look who this is. Anyone knows? It's the president of the Republic of Taiwan. You know, I mean, this is why I'm talking of Esoteric. I mean, this is officially recognized. And when I went to Kaohsiung, where another kind of oracle is practiced, namely the spirit writing oracle, there was a dedication, a photo with her with a dedication to the temple, thanking the temple people, the community for the good service they had rendered. This is my main argument for the moment. But I mean, okay, I have to go there. I have to do some more field work, of course. But here, you know, she's actively participating in that. And that goes on for about 12 minutes with a scrutiny of so I mean, just look at this. You have the president of the republic participating in this ritual, right? And on the other side, you have the warning, folk belief, don't trust entirely. This is what we might call a hybrid. Okay. Oh yeah, just to show you, I mean, many of you will know, but this is the traditional form of spirit writing. And again, here in the moment of the Chinese New Year, to obtain an oracle for the fate of the nation.
其实透过古玩方式接收神明感应，笔画写下字，在高手五甲官地庙今年再度抢夺。
Yeah, very modern. They have laptops and everything to note down, like the prophetes in ancient Greece, to note down the writing, the message of the deity.
像在农历11月26号就开出2021。
There is a message sort of sent by the deity.
一年最早的国运签，
今年签是属于东上签，整体来讲哦，上半年度是平稳，下半。
Thanks so much. This is Chinese and says thank you for your attention.